Okay, in this episode of the original series, I think we've finally gotten to where the stereotype of the red shirt came from after this. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and in this episode, this is one of the many fallbacks of the original series. If they couldn't come up with any other idea, let's have a society, a simple society that's working well but being controlled by a computer. They already did that with Landru. This episode with Val, they had a number of others where there was some kind of computer that was actually running things. And in this case, we have everyone who is kind of a, I don't know, a berry-colored people who are all blonde and are all pretty much shirtless. And yet they are thousands of years old, and there is some question from Starfleet Command as to just what these people are about. And so the Enterprise was sent in to check them out. And they sent an inordinately large landing party. It had to come down in 2 batches. We have the first 6 with the captain, Spock, Chekhov, a yeoman, and 2 security people. And then McCoy beams down with 2 more security people. And as you might think, before the end of the episode, all of these red shirts are dead. In fact, one of them is down before the opening credits. So you know this is going to be a deadly episode for people who have not been normally seen on the show. The only person that actually survives this that's not a regular character is, of course, the yeoman. And she's there basically to be scared and for Chekhov to take some advantage of the situation to try to romance her. And it also works into the plot as well, so I suppose I can't take too much away from it. And the fact that Walter Koenig never really had that big a part on the original series. Every once in a while, a few Russian jokes, and there were right at the beginning of this one as well. All this place looks like the Garden of Eden, which is located right outside Moscow. But his romance scene is something that affects the local natives there, and that plays into the plot. So it was a good outing for him. Interestingly, Sulu and Uhura do not appear in this episode at all. However, they have Scotty in command, and he has not only a great deal to do on the bridge. He has to direct all of the engineering from the bridge. So this whole team of engineers that he has that we never see were at work on the warp drive and various other things. So in this case, interestingly, every red shirt died by something different. One of them is hit by poison darts from a flower. One is hit by lightning. One trips over an explosive rock. And the last one is hit in the head with a stick. So this is how many ways can you die on Star Trek, and there you have it. None of it was by phaser or by any kind of modern convenience. So we have our main character by the name of Akuta, who has antennas implanted in his head so he can talk to this idol, which looks like a dragon head made out of paper mache, which it probably was. And inside of it, deep within the planet, is the mechanism that is Val, who is a dangerous AI, as we would call it these days. Interestingly, after 3 of the 4 red shirts die, they talk about how nobody ever dies on this planet. I kind of wonder if they saw the show. With that, they say that that's the problem with the planet, that nobody dies there. And despite all of those things that will kill you, apparently the small settlement of the people of Val have managed to avoid all of this. They haven't had any accidents. They haven't fallen off a cliff. They haven't stepped on a rock. They haven't smelled the wrong flower and have been able to dodge the lightning. So this is remarkable in that they've been able to survive for more than 20,000 years, according to McCoy's estimation. So, as usual, they talk about what the problem is. We've got to get them out from under the influence of this machine. Spock brings up the Prime Directive. Now, the Prime Directive, which was established pretty much as soon as Gene Kuhn, the producer, came on, said that you cannot have any kind of interference in the natural evolution of a planet. And every time that it's mentioned in the original series, it's violated. Kirk says, forget the Prime Directive, one way or the other. In this case, he says, oh, they're not advancing, they're stagnating. And even though Spock points out to McCoy, that's just by your human point of view. They seem to be perfectly happy and thriving even. What makes you the judge of whether they're evolving in the way that they should? Nevertheless, Kirk takes it on himself and says, well, we could not interfere and then lose the ship, but I would rather save the ship, and who cares about these 12 people that live here? So that's what happens there, and they, through ways that they could have thought of much earlier, destroy the machine and freeze the Enterprise, and everybody gets to go home. A couple of interesting little lines in there that Spock took some poison thorns to keep the captain safe, and while he's able to survive it, the captain says, that's reckless. Do you know how much Starfleet has invested in you? And Spock says, 122,200. He says, never mind. They cut him off before they can decide what kind of currency the Federation has. This is another one of those things where we've had it back and forth where they don't use money in the future, but perhaps it's just not paper money because they do have some kind of accounting of what kind of investment that they make in people and equipment and such. So while we live in a utopian society in Star Trek's time, there's still money. They'd like to say they don't have money, maybe in the same way that we like to say that we have, say, freedom of speech. But for a certain amount of limitations here and there do happen, and sometimes for very good reasons. Another thing, and this is just, this has to do with the 60s. Anytime that they say, well, all these people are 20,000 years old and they don't even know what the word children means, they say, well, we have to get them to where they'll have children and things like this. And how would that happen? And then you have to have Spock uncharacteristically nervously suggest that they would get proper instructions on how to do it. And it's all very junior high, middle schoolish of sex talk. So, okay. And they come back to it at the very end when, Kirk once again tries to explain what love is, and says, well, you'll figure it out. And so they have now changed to society forever, but saved the ship and go back to the ship and make a joke about Spock's pointed ears, and that's the end of the episode. It holds up. It shows some of the 60s tendencies to kind of put women in a second-class area, as well as the nervous talk about sex, but the rest of it holds up decently and is still a good adventure as they put it in. I'd like to know what you think about it, though. Why not go below and make a comment downstairs? And I guess it's downstairs. It's below this frame. I'd like to know what you think about this. Why not go below us and make a comment? And while you're there, if you can click like and subscribe to our channel, that would be helpful for us as well. We'd appreciate it. It doesn't cost you anything, and it makes us feel better. So until next time, when we do our next retro review, which what's the next one? The next one's going to be good. My favorite episode, I believe, is coming up next. So we'll be talking about that next time. So until then, don't go far.